Remember that feeling? Overwhelmed and fearful, when you couldn't see a way forward because of the many steps that stood in your way. And they kept coming, one after another. Life happens, and it happens fast. But stop, take a breath, look back. What seemed impossible then is done now, because you're not the type to be defined by what you could have been. One by one, you took another step up the ladder of your life, no matter what. Now, take another breath. Remember this feeling. Take that pride with you as you lift your feet to take that next step with us. So, what better time than now to ask yourself, what are my future goals?
Hello and a warm welcome to this Nedbank Young Professionals webinar, where we look to continue to assist you in attaining success in both your professional and personal journey. I'm Gugulethu Mfuphi, and I have the pleasure of being your host today, where we're going to engage in phenomenal conversations and really sharing some stories with you from industry leaders and peers to get some insight as to how you can implement some of the nuggets of success that they've attained into your own personal and professional life. Now, for many of you who are well familiar with Nedbank, we remain a strong and supportive partner to you as individuals. And ultimately, you've studied hard. You've worked hard in carving out a niche for yourself in your professional journey. But given the climate that we're currently in, which is filled by so much uncertainty, how do you ensure that you remain motivated and encouraged to continue attaining your goals? Well, that's why we have a follow-up of this webinar, where we aim to leave you enlightened, encouraged, and inspired. So join us for a very exciting conversation that we'll have over the next hour and a half. And not only are we inviting you to listen in, engage into what our experts will say today, but most importantly, we want your interaction. So make use of the chat facility that's available on this webinar to type in your questions, thoughts, and suggestions, and we'll be sure to address them with our panelists here later in the conversation. Now, a reminder that we are coming to you virtually from Nedbank's headquarters here in Sandton, Johannesburg. But technology, whilst it is a friend, can be very fickle at times. So if you happen to notice that perhaps the signal is delayed or the quality and content of the video might be slightly distorted, no need to panic. Just click the refresh button and you'll be automatically brought back into conversation to participate with us today. And most importantly, we are a digital as well as savvy generation, so get out your toys. I've got some of mine out, and do be sure to get the conversation going on social media as well. The official hashtags to use are hashtag MyFutureGoals and hashtag NedbankYoungPros. We're looking forward and excited to hear what some of your thoughts are, and maybe even helping you navigate through some of these challenges. But before that, let's get some insight now from a Nedbank representative to give us more details and encouragement as to why it is that Nedbank continues to support young professionals such as yourself. I'd like to warmly introduce our opening video, which is brought to you by a Nedbank representative, Grace Govender. Grace is the head of new business development for the retail relationship banking business at Nedbank, and is essentially responsible for the coordination, creation, and implementation of key strategic initiatives. In essence, she's responsible to make sure that we effectively enable and support both staff and clients to achieve their personal and business goals. Let's take a look at this opening video from Grace Govender.
To our audience colleagues and guest speakers, Nikki Bush and Sihle Ndaba, it is indeed a pleasure to welcome you to the Young Professional webinar. Our topic for today is keeping your future goals in sight. As young professionals who are either starting up a new career or have made the bold choice to start up your own business, staying focused on your long-term goals can be quite daunting, especially amidst an uncertain economic environment coupled with the complications of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whilst this may be the reality of what you currently face, it is an opportune time to reflect, reorganize, and take stock of your goals, and also to plan for the future. As you prepare to face this future, don't underestimate the power of having a financial partner that takes the hassle out of your day-to-day banking, a financial partner to help you make informed decisions and choices. A financial partner that helps you negotiate financing, your first vehicle or your home. At Nedbank, we continuously strive to offer young professionals such as yourself with the innovation and financial options that are relevant and make a difference to you personally or in your business. If you're under the age of 30 with a 4-year degree, you can get all the banking, rewards and lifestyle benefits at 50% of the discount. If you're starting up your own business, inquire about our startup business bundle that offers you 0 monthly transaction fees for the first 6 months, including 20 fee transactions, all the value, the payment solutions, and all the help you need to get going. Speak to our dedicated relationship banking team. Again, thank you for taking the time to join the session today. I'm particularly excited about the topics, and considering that August is the month to celebrate women, we have 2 dynamic women and experts in their fields to help you make sense of this new normal. In closing, I would like you to encourage you actually to chat to our dedicated banking team. We want to hear from you and we want to support you in your efforts. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to Grace for those opening sentiments that she shared with us. And again, highlighting that Nedbank remains a key partner in assisting you in reaching your goals. Now, for many of you in this world of new normal that we operate in, we've clearly had to observe some of the government regulations in terms of this broadcast here for today. So like you, as you do when you step out of your home, we have ensured that when we enter the building, we've obligated and obliged with the regulations in terms of wearing our masks and sanitizing. And as you can tell, or what you will see in a moment, we ensure that we've social distanced between myself and my colleagues here on the panel today. But let's get the conversation started, and really starting off by setting the tone in terms of understanding that you can be part of a generation of firsts. For many of you, you might be first-time graduates in your family, first employees to work for a corporate institution, or maybe even a first-time entrepreneur and someone who might be evolving their passion to pursue profits and ultimately make a change in the climate and environment that they work in. But how do you do this when you might be lacking the appropriate support from members of your community and, of course, staying with your vision even when there might be distractions along on the journey? Well, to give us some insight into this is someone who has experience of actually launching several projects of her own and being a member of that generation of firsts. She's a real familiar face to us as many South Africans and even those on the international stage. Actress Sihle Ndaba is our first speaker for today. For those of you who might not be aware of who Sihle is, Sihle Ndaba is an award-winning South African actress, businesswoman, content producer, and philanthropist. Now, she's featured in major television, film, and theatre productions. These include, among others, the internationally acclaimed Disney's The Lion King and the classic South African musical King Kong. On screen, audiences have seen her share her talents on major television shows such as Isibaya, Uzalo, and South African Idols, just to name a few. Now, she's also cemented her place as one of South Africa's beloved stars who show no sign of slowing down. She's also the founder of the Sihle Ndaba Foundation, a non-profit organization whose focus is to better improve the livelihoods of school children all over South Africa. To date, she supported more than 100 pairs and provided more than 100 pairs of shoes to more than 100,000 South African school children in various provinces and communities in KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Gauteng. So just when you thought that she was a pretty face on our screens, she's also making a positive contribution to society as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're excited and that you'll be left inspired. And also remember to keep your questions flowing through. Our first speaker for today, Sihle Ndaba. Sihle, good to see you and
No pressure.
No pressure at all. We're actually looking forward to your story today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. And for that beautiful introduction. I'm just like, who is that girl? I don't know her.
All you.
Thank you so much, Sis Gugu. Thank you so much. My name is Sihle Ndaba, as Gugu said, and I am an actress and a philanthropist. And today I just wanted to share about being a generation of firsts. I was the first in my family to want to pursue the arts. I was the first in my family to be a professional performing artist. My parents still don't know what I do, but they support it nonetheless. So some of the things that I learned as a generation of first is that it has to start somewhere. I was born in Ermelo in Mpumalanga, khona la South Africa, and I'm going to mix languages here and there for everybody at home. I hope that's okay. But I was born in Mpumalanga in 1989, and my name is Sihle, but somehow I just ended up as just Sihle Ndaba. And from a very young age, I just loved music. I just loved the arts, the performing arts, acting, all of it. I used to be that kid that literally sang around, or sang along rather, to all the sitcom theme songs. My grandfather used to actually switch off the TV and make me sing the whole thing because I was so annoying. But from a very young age, they could tell that I was loving being in the arts. I loved acting, I loved singing, and predominantly because everybody in my family kind of sang. My grandfather sang, my mom sings, my aunt sings, and so forth. So I don't know if you guys can see my slides, but there's a picture of me dancing in preschool, right? So I don't know why I'm wearing fancy shoes. That doesn't make sense for a traditional dance, but that's where it all started for me, you know, and having a family that was supportive of something that wasn't familiar to them was a big deal for me as well. And that's where I would like to start. I would like to remind every single young person out there that this is a process. Nobody's done life before. No one. We're all just doing this by trial and error. And it's okay to make mistakes along the way. And the thing about a process is it's a series of actions. You can't just think that you're going to wake up today and just like your microwave, put something in for 2 minutes and then you're going to get the results. It's impossible. You can't do that. So it's okay. Trust the process and trust the timing of your life. Now, two of the things that I hold very dear to me, and the reason I believe I am where I am today, I still have a long way to go, but is my why. And the picture you're seeing is my why, my family, the loves of my lives. They have been there from day one, and I feel like it's so important to have a why, a cause that is bigger than you, that thing that wakes you up in the morning so that you can keep going, because it is going to get tough. This is my why. My family has been there from day one. I call them my day ones as well. But also another thing that you need to keep in mind as a young person is that you need a tribe. Now, your tribe is the people that will support you when you're getting to that goal or you're chasing that goal, right? So your tribe has to be people that support you, see you, believe in you, the people that you can call when you're having a good day, the people that you can call when you're having a bad day. And I've been blessed enough to have my family as my why and my tribe. It can be different for you. Maybe you have friends that are your why, but your family is your tribe. They're the people that are supporting you. I know for a fact that one of my family members is actually watching this webinar right now, and that is the reason why I'm so excited and I'm able to do what I do every single day, because it does get tough. I mean, we have a pandemic that we're dealing with right now, and it has discouraged a lot of us and maybe even stopped your business on its way. But I want to encourage you to go back and call your why. Send them a text message and be like, hi, I'm struggling. I need help with this. I need a prayer. I need someone to talk to. That's why you have a why. That's why you have your tribe. So always go back to that tribe and make sure that you've got people that are really, really for you. Now, one of the things that I pride myself on is the lack of bazothina bantu syndrome. And as young people, if you are going to do anything, I encourage you to work on this. Bazothina bantu syndrome is not going to help you with anything in any way, shape, or form. You have to learn to take people's advice with a pinch of salt. Some of it is going to help you. Some of it is genuine and comes from a real place where people want to see you do well. But sometimes people are just trying to drag you down, because who do you think you are trying to be a superstar? But the truth is, everybody's got their own destiny. Everybody's got their way of doing things, and everybody's destiny is different. We're all chasing different goals. You can't just think because your neighbor is trying to be a speaker, now you want to be a speaker as well. No, you don't need to do that. Just do you. Funny story. When I was in high school, I'd always been that girl who wanted to do the artsy stuff. I was in the musical, I was in the band, I did the modeling, I did this and that. And I remember in grade 12, beginning of grade 12, we were all discussing what we wanted to do in the future and what we wanted to study. And I was like, no, I want to do musical theater. And people were just like, you, musical theatre, okay, uzosebenza phi girl? Where are you going to work with this musical theatre diploma degree? And I was just like, well, it's musical theatre, which means I'm going to sing, I'm going to act, I'm going to dance. And the saddest thing is, the two ladies that were standing in front of me, one of them was my cousin, and they laughed out loud in my face saying, you are going to be on TV. You. Where are you going to act? Who's going to hire you? But I had to learn to have thick skin and not care ukuthi bathini abantu and go out and chase it. The reason why I am this girl and I'm able to take the bull by the horns is because of my tribe, right? And my why. Two of the ladies that you can see on your screen at the moment is my mom and my aunt. They were the generation of first as well. They were the first in our family to graduate from varsity, which made me a second generation, and I'm proud of that. I'll own that, right? Because at the end of the day, my two moms, my aunt and my mom, did such a great job of just being themselves. So my mom studied education, my aunt studied social development studies, and they've done such a great job. But one thing that really stood out for me in their journey is that when they got their degrees, they were unemployed. My mom was unemployed for about 10 years. My aunt was unemployed for about 8 years. But because they don't have abazotini, Abantu syndrome, they were selling Tupperware, they were selling Evershlane, they were doing whatever it is that they needed to do to get them to the next. We're too worried about, oh, but I need to wear this, I need to be in branded clothes, Guys, you do what you need to do to get you to the next. They did all of that. And let me tell you, watching them inspired me to go out there and get this. I'm a freelancer. People think actors are living this glamorous life. There's a limousine, there's a driver, there's a this, there's a that. Yes, the 1% get to that point. But now, if I am Sihle and I'm aspiring to get to that 1%, what am I willing to do between now and then? Whatever it takes. Trust the process. Forget about the people. Bazothina abantu. Oh, it's never going to pay any bill. Trust me, none of my bills have ever been paid by someone who said you can't do something. So I continued to pursue my journey in the industry and, studying. I studied for 3 years. I did my musical theatre diploma, and I was super excited to get into the industry. And I got into the industry, and I was doing so many different things within the industry, and I was really excited and I was happy. But something was missing. And Margaret Atwood says it better than anybody else, in my opinion. She says, in the end, we all become a story. I don't want to just be the girl on a magazine. I don't want to have that girl you remember who stole a baby on that show and then pretended that she was pregnant. No, I wanted to be more than that. I wanted to contribute and leave a lasting legacy just like my forefathers did, just like my grandfather did. So that's when I started the Sihle Ndaba Foundation. My foundation is my baby. I don't have any children yet, but this is my firstborn. I started my foundation with zero, and when I say zero, I mean zero information, zero background. But there was a desire, there was a hunger to get out there and do something and be part of a change. Now, I'm going to share something with the young people out there who maybe feel stuck or who are just like, where do I start? Start right around you. A lot of you guys want to be a president. You want to be a counselor maybe. But you're not willing to start doing the groundwork. And you're not asking questions because you're scared that people are going to think you're stupid, that people are going to think you don't know what you're talking about. But that's where it all starts. Like I said in the beginning, it's a process. So I went to a neighbor that was running their own foundation, and I was like, hi, I'd like to do what you're doing. Where did you start? And they were like, I'll donate a pair of shoes for you to give to the next person. And then let's see what you do with that. And then I called the next person. I was like, hi, you run a catering company. Can you please help me by donating a few hot dogs to the kids that I'm going to go visit at a school? So don't be afraid of starting small. I run an organization. I have dreams for this organization. It's going to be big. It's going to be like the Nelson Mandela Foundation one day. But if I don't start today, when will it happen? So I'd love to encourage you guys to just start. Just start. And we are that generation. You know, we've got YouTube, we've got Google that are our best friends. We've got so many tools available to us, but we will find an excuse after an excuse as to why it's not working or why we can't or why we're not qualified. I was raised by a single parent. I didn't let that stand in my way. Matter of fact, I use that every single day to encourage me to get up in the morning and do better and be better than what I was yesterday. So with my foundation, I went and I got a mentor, and I was like, you've been doing this for a while. Where do I start? They donated a few things to me, and then I was like, okay, cool. I've donated that. Okay, now what are we going to do? We're going to teach. We're going to educate. We're going to have conversations because, you know, we take for granted how important conversations are. That's when we start learning about other people. That's when we start learning even about ourselves. I've learned so much more about myself as a young woman through going through this process of going to different schools and speaking and engaging with young women. So I would encourage you to have conversations with your thought leaders in your communities. Ask questions, guys. Ask questions, and there are no such things as dumb questions. I know, you know, sometimes you ask a question, somebody will roll their eyes. That's okay, because why? Asinayo inkinga yokuthi bazothini abantu syndrome. Now, another thing that I learned along my journey was that I need to fail faster. John C. Maxwell says, fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. You fail a lot in acting. A lot. You're auditioning for about 100 shows, you land 3. You're auditioning for about 10 movies, you land a cameo on 1. If you're not used to rejection, it can tear you apart. But what I've learned is that I need to fail faster and I need to fail forward, because the quicker I get through the no's, the quicker I get to my yes. That's what my industry taught me. And I know for a fact that if you try that, just give yourselves 3 months to try something and get through the no's. And just keep in the back of your mind that if I get through this no and I get through this no, the quicker I'm getting to my yes. Because you never know what your yes is. I don't know what you believe in, whether it's God, the universe, the ancestors, whatever it is that you believe in it. Believe that they will come through for you. And then go for those no's. Go for no. Because when you're done with this no, and you're done with that no, and that one, then they say yes. And you're on the biggest show in South Africa. Let me tell you a story about that show. I auditioned for a show called Uzalo, which has got the biggest viewing in southern South Africa, okay? Or rather southern hemisphere, that's what they call it, sub-Sahara. So I auditioned over a period of about 8 months, not knowing whether I've got the job or not. I was doing children's theater, but I still went. Every single time they pick up a phone and say, hi, we'd like you to come and audition, we'd like you to come and do a screen test. I'll be like, okay, cool. And I went. 8 months of auditioning for a show, and you're not 100% sure whether you'll make it or not. Sometimes you don't even have taxi fare to get to an audition. But you make a plan. You ask your mentors, you ask your neighbor, you ask your mom, you ask your dad. You make a plan, because why? Your why is that it's there, man. It's hot. It's eating you inside, because you want this, right? You got a desire for something. You make a plan. You don't make excuses. So fail faster, get through the no's quicker so you can get to your yes. So I auditioned for Uzalo for about 8 months. You audition this month. They keep quiet for 2 months. You hear nothing. You think, it's over. I didn't get it. But that call finally came, and I packed my bags and I moved down to Durban. And I was on the show for 3 years? At the time of my life. Most of you guys are watching this and know me from that show, because I had to go through all those no's to get to my yes. One of the other things that I've learned with my foundation is that, it takes a village. It really takes an entire community to contribute. One of the families that we built a house for, literally, I did not put out a cent out of my pocket to build this house. But somebody believed in my vision. They heard about my foundation and they were like, hi, we heard you're trying to do this project. You want to help out this family. And they came and they helped me because I spoke. I asked questions. I kept on asking. I kept on knocking on doors. I kept on getting through the nose until we got this project off the ground. So keep at it, guys. Keep at it. Another thing that I would like to leave you guys with, or rather a thought that you always need to keep at the back of your mind, is that passion is great. Having a why is great, and having people that are supporting you is wonderful. But what happens when it gets tough? What happens when COVID hits and you're just like, ugh, this is not working anymore? You get disciplined. Discipline is one of the things that will keep you going way past when the energy has run out. Way past the people saying no to you so many times. There are actors out there who haven't been working for over 2 years. They're not changing careers. They're keeping at it. Because why? Discipline. Discipline keeps you consistent. Discipline keeps you above everybody else. We're not competing because we're running our own race, right? So you stay disciplined because that's what's going to keep you going even when you don't want to do something. Some of us are going through things in our households, and it's tough to wake up in the morning, and it's hard to find a reason to even open your eyes. That's when the discipline kicks in. And I'm going to tell you something, guys. When you're disciplined, they pick you, they find you. They're like, no, this one is great. They do the job. But this one is on time. They look the part. They're doing what is asked or required of them. Guys, discipline is the thing. Let's not be that microwave generation that just thinks everything is just going to happen overnight. You need to be disciplined. You need to show up and not think that you're showing up for your boss. You're showing up for yourself. Who are you doing this for? You have to do it for yourself. One of my favorite speakers is Brene Brown. And she says it so well. She says, the mark of a wild heart is living out the paradox of love in our lives. It's the ability to be tough and tender, excited and scared, brave and afraid, all in the same moment. It's showing up in our vulnerability and our courage, being both fierce and kind. I'd like for you guys to take a screenshot of this. And whenever you get scared, remember that it's all part of the process. When you're feeling good, read this again. It's all part of the process. When you don't know what you're doing, it's all part of the process. So do it scared. Do it with nerves and your knees buckling in. Do it with the fear and the confusion. Whether it's a pandemic, whether it's finances, keep going. Keep going. That's the beauty of what we call a process. It's not just about the end goal. It's about the process of getting there as well. I wouldn't be this girl on the cover of magazines, on the biggest shows in the country, on the biggest stages in the world, if I didn't do that with fear. I get nervous. I get so nervous, I'm trembling, my voice is not coming out, and I just don't know what I'm doing. But I had to start somewhere. Money was sometimes an issue. I couldn't go to an art school like I wanted to. I was actually telling the ladies before this that my grandmother and I laugh about it now, but I couldn't afford to go to ballet growing up, and I really wanted to go to ballet because I knew what it was going to do for my career. It was going to contribute. I started doing ballet at 17 years old. I did it for 3 years. What would have happened if I gave up? I don't think I would have been on the cover of that magazine. I wouldn't have been part of Uzalo. I wouldn't have been part of the herd. I wouldn't have been able to share a stage with some of my favorite actors and actresses. I wouldn't be able to fulfill this dream, and I felt like I would be doing myself a disservice if I played small. Don't play small. Show up. Take up space. If there's no chair at the table, pull one up. Go get one next door. Say, hi, I'm here. I would like to do A, B, and C. Some people won't believe in you. That's okay. Some people will think you're crazy. That's okay. Some will laugh. Let them laugh. They laughed at me a number of times. Some still do, actually, but that's okay. Because it's all part of the process. You don't get to this You don't get to a finish line without starting. You have to start. You have to start somewhere. Get up in the morning, take a shower, geza, ubangene. Right? So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today, that if anything, get your why, get your tribe, ask questions, and don't just dream big and think Uguti is going to happen overnight. Do the work. It's a process. Thank you.
Ooh, I'm excited. Goodness. Well, we are in a room with a few individuals, and you might hear some applause in the background. But of course, we also welcome them virtually. I'm super excited by your story, Sihle, and really, I think lots to take away for many of us that are watching here today in terms of resilience, focus, discipline, as well as finding and seeking the right support structures.
Yeah.
Before we get to our next speaker, we're making sure that we are sanitizing all the necessary tech equipment. Yeah. But I'm already intrigued, Sihle. Your cousin that laughed in school, is she watching today?
I hope so. I hope so. Hey, cuz.
You hope so. Well, I must tell you one thing is that we are getting quite a bit of support on social media, and there is at Busisiwe 16 or Madlamini. She says Bazotini Abantu syndrome certainly holds a lot of youth back in South Africa, and that's when we over consider other people's opinions and advice into our own lives. And I'm intrigued to find out from you very briefly before we get into the Q&A session as to how you overcame that. Was it ongoing practice? Do you still have imposter syndrome?
Yes.
Do you still question other people's advice on your life?
Like I said, it's a process. You have to constantly work on it and keep yourself in check, because especially with me, because I work in the public space, I get a lot of feedback every single day. Somebody's got an opinion about my hair, or how I look, how I speak, how I walk, how I dress, how I even tackle a character. Somebody's always going to have an opinion, so I always need to keep myself in check and be like, hey, bazothina abantu is not my problem.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm also excited to find out what else you might have next on your agenda. You've certainly grown leaps and bounds within the entertainment industry. And I think for many people also reflecting on the journey that you've had along the way as we've watched you grow and transition into various characters. So we're super excited. And of course also keen to tackle how you've turned a passion of yours into a profession, which is something a lot of young people actually struggle with as a challenge. Sure. Perfect. Looking forward to that. And of course you can keep your questions coming in for Sihle through the chat service that we have available on our web link to this afternoon, but also through social media. And of course the hashtags to keep going there: Nedbank Young Pros, hashtag Nedbank Young Pros, and hashtag My Future Goals. If that's not enough of an incentive, then maybe I'll just give you a quick shout out, perhaps if you tweet us and share your question. But coupled with making sure that you're part of a generation of first, that you find your tribe, that you're able to grow, you also need to stay encouraged, right? And for many of us, you jot down your goals and your dreams and you're able to spearhead into one direction. But there are other alternatives available in terms of having different careers within one lifetime and understanding how best to tap into your full potential. Well, what better way to get better advice than for someone who's walked that journey and who is a clear leader in terms of excelling both in your personal life and in your professional life. Our next speaker is well regarded within the South African and international public space and will be engaging us on the topic Whispers to Young Talent. Even if you're over 45, you're still young and able to participate in this conversation. But Nikki Bush will join us as a human potential and parenting expert. Nikki Bush empowers individuals, families, and teams in business and education to win at work, home, and life. She has a knack for putting difficult, complex, and sensitive topics on the table, ones that we often choose to ignore, and making them accessible, such as disruption, death, loss, team dynamics, personal leadership, parenting, sexuality education, tech and your kids, and so much more. Nikki's written a number of books which have been best-selling parenting books with major publishers, including her latest, Future-Proof Your Child for the 2020s and Beyond. She's also fielded several, more than 2,500 media interviews in the past 12 years, and you might also recognize her face from familiar TV stations and channels such as SABC3's Expresso and Talk Radio 702. She's the founding member of the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, holds the International Certified Speaking Profession designation, and was inducted into the Speakers Hall of Fame in 2019. the first woman in South Africa to ever receive it. She currently serves as the president of Johannesburg's chapter for the Public Speakers Association of Southern Africa. I'm excited for this particular conversation. Nikki is known for actually motivating corporate executives and even ourselves as young individuals today in terms of winning both at work, home, as well as life. Nikki, I'm excited.
Thank you, Gugu. So am I. And what, I have to follow Sihle,
right?
Who is such an inspiration. Oh, my goodness. You had so many beautiful pearls of wisdom. So let's see if I can build on that. Please. Right, so I'm going to be sharing some whispers for young talent. And the first question that I have for our audience is, when last did you get lost? Now, I know we are actually talking to a generation under the age of 30 today, and you don't get lost, do you? Because when last did you use a map book? You didn't, you don't, because you just use Waze or you use Google Maps. So we're now in COVID-19, and I think that has thrown everybody a curved ball. And right now, you are probably finding yourself in this maze, and that's why I put this picture up. I'm sure you're finding yourself in this maze, feeling a little trapped, maybe overwhelmed, confused, a little bit fearful. Maybe the trajectory of your career has been stunted a little. So maybe if you've got a piece of paper and a pen next to you, you can make a couple of notes. I'm going to ask a few questions. But if you're feeling like you're stuck in a maze like right now, you are no different to anybody else of any age and stage at all. So let's test your emotional temperature. I can't do a full-blown poll, but I'd like you to be honest and make a note of which statement most accurately reflects how you are feeling right now. So are you feeling overwhelmed and confused? Or are you feeling fearful and anxious? Or are you feeling positive about future possibilities? Now, these are 3 questions that I have asked every single audience that I have spoken to over the past 5 months during lockdown. And usually we get a response of a third, a third, a third. So I'm interested to know how you are feeling right now, and I hope that you are interested in how you are feeling too. So Whispers for Young Talent, it really is to give you a few pearls of wisdom, a few pieces of advice to help you break into that world of work realistically. I know that if you're watching this, you have a degree. You're supposed to be a graduate with a 4-year degree or more. And we know that you have been sold the tale that if you have a degree, you're going to make it in life. Well, the reality is that a degree opens the door. But keeping the door open is really up to you, and it's about your experiences and how you showcase your X factors for success. So I'm going to be sharing some of that information with you over the next while. So COVID-19 has disrupted all of us. It's external disruption. We didn't ask for it, but it's come at us and it's thrown us a curved ball. The message I have for you today is that we all have to get used to disruption. COVID-19 is like a red light flashing. It is the shape of things to come. As you heard, I've written a book called Future-Proof Your Child for the 2020s and beyond. And in that book, we unpack what the world of work might look like in the future. And it is full of disruption. This is the trend going forward for probably the next 100 or more years. You have entered a world of no guarantees. This is a world in which having a degree does not guarantee that you will get a job. We all know how many graduates are unemployed. It's a world in which having a job doesn't guarantee that you will have an income for the rest of your life either. In fact, you need to look at your career as a portfolio of careers, because by the time you are in your early 30s, you probably will have already had at least 10 different jobs, maybe even 14. So gathering those jobs, the careers, you're going to build a portfolio of careers just like a Hollywood actor. And it's interesting that we've had Sihle talking to us today, and she is an actress, and she's already said it's not easy. In fact, if you think about a Hollywood actor, they don't have consistent work. They really only have work when somebody funds a movie, and in between times they are out of work. So we're moving into an era where we are going to have guaranteed periods of unemployment, where we will also have voluntary periods of retirement, where you might take yourself out of the world of work for a couple of months or maybe a year to reinvent yourself, to reskill yourself for what's coming next. Those are going to be possibly voluntary choices, but there is also a big shift at play, and COVID has really brought this trend into sharp focus. And that is that we are now working in the gig economy, the on-demand economy, where big businesses will employ people on short-term contracts to do a job, to complete a project, and not necessarily employ people full-time for long periods of time. Head offices are going to shrink, and more people will be working from home. Well, isn't COVID-19 the poster child for this trend? Everybody is now working from home, and it is a trend, working from a distance, that is going to continue in the years to come. So we're going to see rotational schooling. We're going to see rotational work, where you're going to work from home for most days and pop into the office once or twice a week. That is highly likely to stay the norm. Disruption is going to come at us in so many different ways, from technology, because technology is changing the world, to information, big data. And then we've got the demographics of the world changing. We have an aging world population. In fact, Africa is one of the very few continents that has a young workforce. And we're going to see more and more natural disasters. We know that there are hurricanes and fires hitting the US right now. That sort of thing is going to continue. So disaster relief and recovery is going to be big business. Logistics and delivery is going to be big business. COVID-19, once again, has put that right front and center, because we know that retail is bleeding right now. And we know that online sales are up, because this is the future. These are things that we have been talking about for a long, long time. Virtual conferencing is something we have had access to for many years. But it just took one epoch-making event, COVID-19, and it's not an event actually, it's a process that is going to take us 12 to 18 months to unpack, to bring us all into the virtual conferencing realm, which is what we are doing right now. And aren't we lucky that the technology, the apps exist for us to continue being able to communicate despite the fact that we are in various stages of lockdown. So these are just some of the trends that are reshaping the world of work. You may be in a job right now, and within 6 months or a year, that department or that company no longer exists. And COVID, once again, has shown us how certain industries have really battled during this time, while others have picked up and are rising. So we're seeing the rise of some industries, the fall of other industries, and this cycle will continue. So who you are is going to be far more important than what you do or what you sell in the future, because what you do and what you sell is going to continually be shifting and changing underneath our feet. And so being adaptable and being flexible are going to be character traits that are going to be sought after by employers in the future. And point number 3 says that you make the path by walking on it. Nobody can do it for you anymore. Having the best education in the world is not going to do it for you either. You've got to be prepared to do the work, to do the hard yards. And I think that Sihle absolutely nailed it with what she said. You can have all the bells and whistles, but if you're not prepared to put in the elbow grease, to have the discipline to walk the path, and many of us today are actually creating brand new paths that have never ever been there before. They've never been walked before. We are quite literally all inventing the future as we speak. So get used to disruption. It's not going to go away. And disruption is a doorway for possibility and invention. And if you're young and energetic and prepared to apply yourself, I can only see success in your future. So some whispers of wisdom for the young. Number one, you are not entitled to anything before you first add value. And this is not a new thing. But you know, often, and I talk from being the other side of 30 by quite a few years, and having children of my own who are in the graduate category, what we often see with young people is a sense of entitlement. I've got a degree, I deserve more. I deserve more money, I deserve a better title, give it to me. No, 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 no. That's not how business works. What are you doing right now that is adding value in your particular sphere of influence? Are you actually adding value? Now, if I go back in my career to when I was at your age and stage, I remember having to do some real hard yards because I was the youngest in the department or the youngest in the company. Things like this. On a Monday morning, I was the young one in the department who was given a pile of newspapers this high, and it was my job to read every single newspaper from around South Africa in both English and Afrikaans in those years, from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. My entire Monday was spent reading the newspapers. Now, you might think, what on earth was that all about? I mean, yawn, yawn, yawn. Well, let me tell you, it taught me to be able to read fast, at speed, and of course, in those days we had 2 official languages. I became fairly proficient in my second language at the time, which was Afrikaans. But my general knowledge grew like this. I knew what was going on in the world, I knew what was going on in this country, and I was able to have high-level conversations because I didn't have to go, I'm not sure where that place is. Let me just Google it. I knew. So your general knowledge could be the difference between you getting a job and somebody else getting a job because you speak sense, you talk sense, and you have an idea where countries are, rivers are, who the politicians are, what the topics of the day are. You can contextualize what you have to offer. So you are not entitled to anything unless you first add value. Keep that in the back of your mind. Just by doing that fairly menial task, I was adding value. Please don't think that anything is too small for you to do, and whatever it is that you tackle, please do it well. And then you will find somewhere in your career, particularly in your early years, there is going to be somebody, a boss, or somebody in your department who is going to give you a really tough time. And it's not going to be comfortable. One of the things that I've learnt in life is that if you're uncomfortable, you are probably learning. I had my baptism by fire in my mid-20s. I was about 24, 25. I was probably in my 3rd or 4th job at that point in time, and I did not start my career as a speaker and author. I started my career in public relations and marketing. I have had 3 distinctly different careers. Public relations and communications and marketing, direct selling, and now as a speaker and author. There is always scope to change track, and I believe that you as a generation will change track often. And although my 3 careers have been distinctly different, they've all had something that connected them. I have always been a speaker and a writer in one way, shape or form, but it has morphed and changed. And so often people say, so what do you do? And that defines who you are. Well, it doesn't really. I'm a speaker and an author, but that's not who I am. And I'm going to get back to that in a few minutes. So sometimes you will come across these people who give you a hard time. And the threat is that you're going to run. You're going to try and leave as quickly as you can. And that's often when people quit jobs because they can't stand this person. Well, I want you to ask yourself the next time you're in this situation, what am I learning from this? And how am I growing from this uncomfortable situation? I was in a situation where I was working with a really top account manager in a public relations firm who had been one of the deputy editors of the Sunday Times. He knew his stuff. He was an excellent writer. I was also good. I'd had awards for my writing, and I'd been writing public relations copy for 4 years already. I wasn't bad. I used to write these press releases. He was not a great teacher. He would put a pen through my work, give it back to me, and not say a word. I was left completely in the dark, stewing in my own juices, wondering what I'd got wrong. But you know, every day, his name, his face, flits through the back of my mind, and I am grateful for my baptism by fire, because that man made me better than good. Who is making you better than good? Because average is forgettable, and average is replaceable. You want to be better than good. And if you want to be better than good, you have to have discipline, and you have to be prepared to do the hard stuff and to stick around long enough to learn the lesson. So point number 3 is don't leave before you learn. Sometimes we have to lie on the floor in discomfort for long enough to learn the lesson before we leave. Then we go on to building your talent profile. Sihle has told you how many different kind of careers she's had, or parts of her career she's had, and how many different roles she's acted. Well, you have those roles too, in the number of jobs you've had, the different divisions you've worked for, the different titles you've had. And what you need to be doing is tracking all of that experience, because what did I say earlier? It's not your degree that keeps the door open. It's your experience. So you need to be collating all of that experience that you have, whether you are 24, 27, 30, or maybe we've got some 30-somethings on this webinar, and you need to be building a multimedia talent profile. You know, the old CV is quite dead and buried these days. I would strongly suggest that a multimedia talent profile really is a website in your name. If you want to go and see a talent profile, just Google me and go and visit nikkibush.com, and everything you need to know about me is there. If anybody wants to employ me, everything they need to know is there. My proof of life, my proof of experience is there. It is a multimedia CV. So look at a website for yourself, look at your social media platforms, and here's a little pearl of wisdom. Remember that the internet never, ever forgets. So you need to manage what you are putting online, because there are people smarter than you and me who can interrogate your social media platforms and find out even the stuff you don't say in public. So manage your social media presence. It's important. And if you want to read more about the talent profile, in my book, Future-Proof Your Child, there is a whole section on how adults can prepare their talent profile. And a talent profile really speaks to showcasing what I call the 5 X factors for success for the future world of work. These are the things that any boss in the future is going to look for. They are going to ask you to showcase a time when you were innovative, creative, when you thought outside the box. Have you got a story for that? They are going to ask you to showcase a time when you were resilient and adaptable and resourceful. I hope that you are busy recording all of those moments and you've got them in video, or you've got somebody to speak about you on a video clip, or you've got somebody to write you a written testimonial. What about loving learning? That's the third X factor for success. You have to take responsibility for your learning journey. Gone are the days. I really do believe that the HR playbook is being rewritten right now. Gone are the days when you could wait for HR to come to you and say, it's time you did a new course. No, you need to be able to tell a future boss, this is what I taught myself, what I went off and learnt off my own bat because I was interested or I thought it was going to improve my career. What are you doing? How are you directing your own learning journey? And then the last two X factors for success are knowing yourself really, really well and being able to be a very versatile part of a team, both online and offline. So let's go to knowing yourself really well. You need to be working out all the time who you are and what is the essence of you. This links to what Sihle talked about in terms of what's your why. What is your why? But who are you? I said a little earlier, people will often define you by your job title. But we are way bigger than our job title. And I want to share an example with you of a young girl I met when she was 27. I was at my husband's niece's wedding. And I'm very interested in young people and why they choose to get into the work they do. And I was chatting to this girl called Lisa. And I discovered that she was working for one of the major banks. And I asked her what she studied. And she said architecture. And I said, wow, that's quite a big distance between architecture and banking. I said, what do you do in the banking environment? She said, I design and build financial products. Okay, there was the link. She's a builder and a designer. But she followed that with, I actually wanted to be a fashion designer. But my parents didn't think that that was a real career. So they made me study architecture. Well, I bumped into her about 3 or 4 years later. Fortunately, I remembered her name too. And I said, hey, Lisa, how are you? Are you still with the bank? And she said, no, not that one. I'm actually building a brand new bank from the ground up. She said, I have the best job in the world and I'm designing dresses on the side. So she's got a side hustle and you guys need to have a side hustle. In fact, you need a few side hustles. You need a number of streams of income. It's going to become the norm to have 2 or 3 or 4 streams of income. Some of the most successful 30-somethings that I know have got 3 or 4 streams of income. One guy who studied arts and science, he studied law and science, got into the legal fraternity, first of all, then he got into the online sales space and he was drawing up contracts with vendors. Then he got into the gaming space. He was selling his skills on Fiverr.com. He was selling his skills writing articles about gaming. Okay, this is a lawyer writing about gaming. He also owned a gym with his wife for quite some years. And now he started up the country's first marketing agency that connects gamers with big brands. Look at what he's done in 10 years. Well, not even 10 years, because he probably only graduated at around 24. But literally in 5 or 6 years, how many streams of income does he have? How interesting is he? Oh, he's a comedian on the side. And he is married, and he has a child, age 3. How's that? He's about 31. Okay. And I've just introduced him to a major publisher, and he's going to be writing a book for them too. So what is the essence of who you are? So for Lisa, it was that any time she was building or designing something, she was being true to herself. So small hinges swing big doors. I want to leave you with a few pointers here. In the world of business, connecting with a smile or a handshake and eye contact builds trust. I know for some people, you have to get over the fear of that, and sometimes culturally that is not natural to you. But if you're working in the business environment, it works. And even if you're nervous, smile, because you disarm the person opposite you and you also disarm your own nerves. I've said it a number of times, you need to be interested in others and the world and be an interesting person for others to be interested in you, and people are the ones who will give you job opportunities. So be interested in people. And please keep your word. This speaks to what Sihle said about discipline. If you say you're going to do something, do it. You need to under-promise and you need to over-deliver. And I have one last point that I'd like to share with you. And it's a question. Can you reframe COVID-19 for yourself? Now, reframing is a skill set that enables you to reframe the circumstances you're being faced with and to reauthor your life. So I have been an entrepreneur, I have been employed, I have been a wife, I have been a mother of 2. I have had 3 different careers, as you've heard. I've been around. Sometimes life is going to throw you a curve ball. In fact, I can guarantee you that life is never going to unfold in a straight line exactly as you planned. I was given a life quake, not a life tremor, but a life quake 2.5 years ago when we had a home invasion and my husband was shot and killed. My life was turned upside down, just like everybody's life right now has been turned upside down with COVID-19. And you might be feeling very overwhelmed, very anxious, very out of control right now. We don't like feeling out of control. We don't like not being able to see what the future looks like. But we're having to get comfortable with that, every last one of us. So on the day of my husband's funeral, we held a wake that evening for close friends and family. And at 10 o'clock that night, people started leaving. And it was at that point that I started crying. And the person standing next to me just happened to be a friend who was also a psychologist. And she said, "Nix, what's going on for you right now?" And I said, "This moment just feels like the end. It feels like a full stop, the end of everything I know." Now, I'm a visionary. I always have plans that go beyond this week, this month, or the end of the year. And suddenly all hopes and dreams and plans had been shattered in just 6 minutes. They had been wiped out. And she encouraged me in that moment to turn this full stop into a comma. And she added something else. She said, "I want you to see if you can turn this full stop into a comma and dot, dot, dot. And the dots are the future that you are going to create for yourself." I don't think she imagined how influential this was going to be in my recovery, in my healing, in getting back on my feet. But it has become the framework that I have used for survival through loss, grief, and trauma. And those dots are made up of new people, new places, new adventures, opportunities, and possibilities, taking myself out of my comfort zone and reinventing my life from scratch. So I'm offering you this analogy today. Perhaps you can use it for COVID-19, or maybe you've been holding on to something and you have framed it as a full stop in your life and it's holding you back. And maybe you can see your way clear to turning that full stop into a comma and dot, dot, dot. I leave that as my gift for you, in addition to a copy of Talent Redefined, which is an ebook that you will receive a link to download, and it's all a new look at talent for a new look world of work. So one last question. I asked you right at the beginning of this presentation to test your emotional temperature. Which statement most accurately reflects how you're feeling right now? And I'd like you to answer those questions again to see if you have shifted. Are you feeling overwhelmed and confused, or are you feeling fearful and anxious, or are you feeling positive about future possibilities? I can tell you that in every audience that I have done a live poll in, everybody shifts to an 80 to 90% feeling positive about future possibilities. So I hope that that was the case for you, because I believe that we are living in an unbelievable world of possibilities that we have never, ever seen before. And you guys are the perfect age to take advantage of it. One last pearl of wisdom. Life shrinks and expands in proportion to one's courage and curiosity. My last words are, may your curiosity be stronger than your fear. Thank you very much.
Oh, Nikki, thank you so much. I think that both your presentations certainly deserve a round of applause, even if you can only hear mine in the background. And I think it's really encouraging, given the pearls of wisdom that you shared. I took notes in terms of doing the questionnaire, and I was leaning more towards fearful and anxious. And after this presentation, as you've left us feeling encouraged, hopefully my curiosity will be stronger than my fear at the end of this conversation today. Well, you've certainly been hearing the insights from Nikki Bush, who's a speaker and author, but of course so much more than that, as we've heard through this conversation, as well as Sihle Ndaba, who's an actress, who's also shared more details behind her foundation and what it is that has kept her driven and eager to continue fulfilling her goals and dreams. We've done a lot of talking, and we're going to do more talking, but this time you're more than welcome to join us. And we've seen some of your questions that have come through. Please do keep them going, as we will address them. Some of them are very specific to Nedbank, and there are Nedbank representatives who will reach out to you in terms of any additional financial support that you may need for your business or entrepreneurial drives and ambitions. So those will be responded to in the background on a one-on-one bespoke basis. The feedback on Twitter is also fantastic. So to Charlotte Mbele, at Cindy, Pumelele Maja, as well as Charlotte Mbele again, thank you so much for your feedback in terms of providing some support and clarity as to how you've received the messages that have been shared by our speakers here today. One certainly highlighting that Nikki brought through the element that millennials need to put in the elbow grease and not be entitled to much of the glamorous lifestyle that we start. And Nikki, I think I want to start with you, and it ties into a question that we have received earlier in terms of the guidelines that you shared with us today. To any of you who might have missed it, we will be sharing this recording with you again. You've really given us a set sense of principles and steps to follow in terms of curating your career, making sure the information is accessible and available, and also ensuring that personal development takes place. But as you say, it can be overwhelming. So where in this equation does one need to solicit the support or advice of someone more senior or someone with a little bit more skin in the game than themselves? And I'm assuming this is where mentorship or even life coaching might actually come into play.
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. And Sihle was talking about it as well.
Yeah.
You know, ask questions. When you're young, acknowledge you don't know everything. You really have such limited life experience. And find your mentors. Don't feel stupid asking questions. Because if you don't ask them, that's being stupid.
Yes.
So whether it is what to do with, you know, your money, because that's important. If, you know, I mentioned periods of voluntary retirement or guaranteed unemployment. You better be saving for a rainy day. Don't live beyond your means, because you need to be able to say, I'm taking 6 months off to study, to upskill myself. Who's going to pay for that? You may be lucky to have a benefactor in a large corporate employer, but those things are going to become rarer moving forward. You're going to have to pay for that a lot of the time yourself. But remember, there's also a lot that's for free out there. But look for mentors. They're everywhere. I always say we need lots of mothers and lots of fathers.
Yes.
So look for those mother figures and father figures. And if you're lucky enough to have your own mum and dad, we also have to acknowledge that while they've given us everything they can, they themselves also have their own limitations, because they have their own limited life experience, their own exposure. I would never have landed up being a speaker and writer if I hadn't taken a road less traveled and gone overseas the year after school and not gone straight to tertiary education.
Really?
And it was while I was in Australia, overseas, redoing matric just because it was part of the program I was on, that I actually took myself off to do work experience and worked in places I would never. I worked in hotel kitchens. I made beds. I worked as a caregiver for spastic children. I did all sorts of things. And somebody spotted me and put me on the path to public relations and communications because he saw something in me that I didn't know was there, my parents didn't know was there. So please reach out. People are actually so happy to help. When I said be interested in others and be interesting, that's what I meant. If you are prepared to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know enough, help me. People will step in because you are not being entitled. You're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that will actually attract people to you to help you.
Makes
So
a
that's
lot
good
of
one.
sense.
And coaches, yes. You know, coaches are fantastic. And if you're in a big company, you probably have access to that. And book an appointment with somebody senior than you and say, what made it work for you? What were those key learning moments, those key shifts in your career? Because it's important to know, because we don't know when we're young. We really don't. Yeah.
We like to think we do, though, right? And that raises an interesting point, because you mentioned the discipline, Nikki, and that goes directly to what you were saying about your experience, Sihle, is that once individuals see that you're disciplined and you're capable, that's when the opportunities would find you. But there was another element you highlighted in terms of rejection, and I realized that Leo De Silva has sent through a question in terms of how to manage rejection. His particular question is aligned to the fact that he's been looking for a job in the market at the moment, receiving rejection letters, and is really struggling in terms of processing the lack of feedback. And I can imagine with yourself, you mentioned the number of auditions you go into, and there's hardly any feedback as to,
Zero.
well, it's this, it's that, work on that.
Zero.
What have some of your life skills been in terms of managing rejection? And Nikki, feel free to jump in here if there's additional suggestions.
For me, it was very different because I got trained in varsity already, because I was going into a field of zero guarantees. So it's so funny because Nikki pointed it out today, that you need to have multiple streams of income.
Yes.
You need to, use all your different skill set. I wanted to initially study drama, but then I was just like, that will limit the amount of money I would make. So I studied musical theater because I could sing, I could act, I could dance, and then while I was in there, I found out, you can do voiceovers. That's also another way of looking at it. So for me, I would say, take the notes wherever you can, if you can get feedback from whoever it is that you're doing these interviews from. But also look at other things that you can do. You're not a one-dimensional being. You can recreate yourself. You can think new thoughts. So don't just stick to what you know. Like Nikki said, it's that time. It's game time. We need to shift our focus. We need to shift our thinking.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to make money. As a freelancer, I couldn't act for a while because the whole country was closed, right? But I could still do certain things because they were within the regulations of that particular level. So I'd say open yourself up to other things that you may have perhaps neglected or forgotten about or thought, I'm not too good at this.
I'd like to add something here, and it comes from the ebook that I'm sharing with our audience today, Talent Redefined. And it is this, that talent moves in herds. So why not, if you can't get a job right now, and even if you do have a job, you create masterminds where you might have 5 or 10 of you who meet. Some people are meeting every morning from 8 to 9 and having conversations, because if you've got a job, you might know that there's an opportunity in that business. So we need to share. We need to network. That's another one of the, talent, Talent, networked individuals. So you are needing to build a network of people to support you, to give you intel into the market. So don't sit, well, right now we have had to sit at home, unfortunately. But people are having these virtual masterminds. But don't sit in your corner feeling smaller and smaller because you're getting more and more rejection letters. That almost needs to fuel you, and I don't want to say with anger, but, get in touch with your emotions, and you need to use that as fuel. and not let it get the better of you. And if you can't find a way here, then you're going to have to break down a door somewhere else.
Makes sense.
There are windows and doors everywhere, but sometimes we have to get out of our own limited thinking. I study to be calm. I should be doing a business job.
Right?
Well, right now, let me tell you, I would teach myself to touch type really fast. You can get some data capturing jobs that pay a fortune. Yes, it might not be as a manager of something, but if you need to earn money right now, and if you need an in an organization, and you are a hot data capturer, I mean, I could think of nothing worse. But if you can't do anything else, but you can do that,
Find
because
options.
you can be accurate, it's an option, a way to get into an organization. And, and as somebody said who was a data capturer, I am the underwired bra of the organization.
Ooh, and we know what that does.
Garbage in, garbage out, you know. So how we see ourselves is also very important. If you see yourself as small, you will be small. If you are so fussy that you'll only take X job, well, you're going to be out of work for a long time. Whatever job you're in now is the stepping stone to the next one.
Yeah.
And it might be a critical job that helps you meet somebody who's going to be a career-defining person, even though you went through a back door. You don't always have to go through the front door. Back doors are very interesting.
Makes it, as long as they're honest and moral.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only caveat that we're putting in there. It's quite intriguing that you mention that, because clearly the question around extra income has also come through, and lots of excitement around that. And I actually want to build that up in twofold. Firstly, the time. We're trying to upskill ourselves in taking on all these online courses, studying further, advancing our skills, being amazing parents or family members to those who are our loved ones, and at the same time working for institutions where you know that there's always the golden check, right, or the golden handcuffs. I have a friend who refers to it as that, the one organization that's just too difficult to let go of, or that one contract that you can't cancel purely because the money and the numbers make sense, and that might inhibit your potential to actually tap into other opportunities. So that comes into from a question again regarding Linda as well as Leo, as to how best we manage, number one, our time in allocating our minds and our resources adequately, but also making sure that we're not limited by the golden handcuffs, which perhaps induce that fear, limiting us to explore. And maybe we should start with you, Sihle, to give us some insight here, because as a freelancer, goodness, you've seen it all.
I've seen a lot. For me, I think it's different with every person, but for me, my peace comes first. One thing I learned in the last 5 years is don't just pray for the dream job, also pray for the working environment.
Yes.
Because sometimes you're walking into this job, it's your dream job, you love it, it's got the paycheck, it's got the benefits, everything, but the working environment is so toxic, it starts eating up at you. You've only got one life. So for me, if it's not a healthy working environment and it's not, I have no peace. And because it's all good and well.
And that's an interesting balance, right? Because you mentioned being uncomfortable and making sure that you learn, but at the same time your peace is important.
Yeah.
So there's a fine balance there, I'm assuming.
And I don't think you ever find a balance. You're going to have to compromise at some point.
Sure.
You can't tick all the boxes. I've found that it's very difficult to... This word balance doesn't really exist. For me, personally, it doesn't exist. So I'll have a list, perhaps, of top 10 things that I will look at and be like, these 10 things I can compromise on. These ones, this is a deal breaker. So... it's like the 80-20 rule. Makes sense. You can't get 100% of the cake, so you will have to compromise and get the 80% and then deal with the 20%. So for me, it's that 80-20. If it's not giving me peace, thanks, bye.
And your time, voiceover here, acting here, stage performance here, training, the foundation, it's a lot.
It's a lot, but I have just learned to juggle it and also say no to certain things. And that's the hardest thing as a freelancer, because for us it's no work, no pay, right? So then you start looking at jobs. For example, you get paid more for a voiceover for a radio ad than you do for a TV commercial. TV commercials, you make more money. Then you have that conversation with your manager, or you have that conversation with your agent, and you're like, listen, I still love doing the voiceover work, but right now I'm focusing on doing a theater production, so if you want to book me for a voiceover, can we please try and prioritize TV commercials so that I'm not wasting a lot of time, because I need to rest when I'm doing a theater show. Yes. I need the day to rest so that in the evening I am on point, I'm ready to go.
Makes
so
sense.
it's compromise, I think, really.
And build very nicely into that talent portfolio that Nikki mentioned.
Exactly.
I'm curious about the 31-year-old who's writing books, balancing parenthood,
Me too.
owning a gym, right? All these multiple streams of income. Surely there's a lot of inspiration that we should get from that. But discipline as well in terms of the time management
Well,
too.
boundaries. I think that's a word that comes up for me while you were speaking, is that you said you tell your agent that she can only book you around these times because you need X, Y, Z. So knowing what's good for you and self-care is important. And one of the things that I think millennials have got actually right, what they've shone a light on the fact that life should have meaning beyond an income, beyond a job. And I thank millennials for stirring the pot enough to make us rethink what work should feel like for us. And in my book, work and life are not distinctly separate. I believe, and I always have believed, that they are both expressions of who we are. So whether you are a parent or not, whether you are employed or entrepreneur, or you're married or you're not, you know what I mean? It's all an expression of you. So we really need to be tending to the who. That who is a very important part of being in the world. And self-care has been on the back burner for other generations. But I think millennials are bringing that once again front and center. So it is about finding an equal balance. But if you really want to achieve something, there's always going to be a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Ask any entrepreneur how they got to where they got to. And it's because they were prepared to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning when everyone else got up at 7 o'clock in the morning. They did an extra 2 hours before everybody else, or they worked later at night. And right now we have everybody working from home with COVID with these blurred boundaries. You have to determine what your boundaries are. Once you add children into the mix, it makes it so much more complicated. Right now I'm facing a challenge. I have a new book to write by the end of November, and I haven't started writing yet.
TikTok, September starts on Tuesday.
So, you know, the discipline, I've got to start. Well, you know, I know how my brain works. And I know every radio interview on a Wednesday on 702 has been a contribution to the book. So I know that I've been writing chapters, slowly but surely, but I haven't actually got down to writing it yet. And I know I've probably got 200 to 300 hours worth of work ahead of me. And that's going to be done when everyone else is asleep.
Makes sense.
That's the discipline I'm going to have to apply for a short period of time for a long-term gain.
Makes sense. So it's understanding the goal, planning and structuring it accordingly, and putting in the little bit of work that's required from time to time.
Also, you need to look at how important is this to you. We often waste time on things that are not important to us, either because it earns us money, okay, so it's the scales of importance. And if you take a piece of paper and divide it into 5, on one, in the left-hand column, write down all the things you're involved in, and then this is a very good way of prioritizing. How much time does this take? How much money does it earn me? How interested am I in this thing? And how passionate am I? And there's a big distinction between interest and passion.
Sure.
And then you'll see where you're spending your time, where you're earning your money, and whether it actually balances. And I agree with you, there is no balance. It's about dynamic balance. There's no perfect balance. Think of a seesaw. A seesaw is never like this. A seesaw is doing that. And as long as it's moving, you're okay. If it gets stuck, you're in trouble. And then you have to learn to unstick yourself very quickly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. All about unsticking ourselves, and we're getting on to the next question, and I'm intrigued by this one from Cleopatra, the University of Pretoria. Nikki, she asked this to you as to, how important is social media like Instagram and Twitter, apart from LinkedIn, in terms of building that talent pool as well as multimedia profile? And I think that's quite an interesting one in terms of dynamics, because a lot of millennials tend to get lost and have different personalities on different platforms.
Yeah, so I use different platforms for different things. So if I'm wanting business to business, LinkedIn. If I'm wanting a personal connection, for me, for my generation, it's Facebook. Instagram, I'm not so big on Instagram because I find that those other 2 platforms at the moment are serving me. I just get exhausted by trying to do all of it.
True.
And so at some point you have to pick a lane. and you have to choose. And right now we've boiled it down to those two. But I have another business where it's Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook. So it actually depends on your market. Who are you trying to be seen by is the question.
Yes.
So who's that person, who's that avatar? And that really, at the end of the day, determines which platforms you choose. But do you need to have a following? Yes, you do. You do. So you should be building up a following consciously as you go along. And it depends what track you decide to follow and what niche. What's your expertise? At some point, you need to become an expert at something.
So true, and I think that's an element that we tend to underestimate, especially in terms of tapping into the many talent pools. It's almost like the length as well as breadth of the elements that you're trying to tap into, and finding where the T actually does connect, that sweet spot that separates you from everyone else. And that ties in quite nicely with what you highlighted earlier on, Sihle, in terms of your foundation. Many South Africans and the audience at large know you mainly as a player within the arts in South Africa, but of course you've taken something as a foundation, formalized it, and that also comes with its own elements of compliance, and at the same time managing this passion project of yours and still making it profitable. And that's been a challenge also highlighted by some of the questions that we've had in terms of how do you make your passion profitable and still participate in other activities?
How do you make your passion profitable? That's a very good question. I started it with my career, even, because I couldn't afford to go to art school. So my mother said to me, if you can get your matric results and you can get into a university, then, you know, we'll have this conversation. So, I don't know, my passion has always opened doors for me. You know what I mean? Like, I start something and I work hard, and somehow I attract people and things that I'm meant to get.
Is this part of the dynamic that Nikki actually alluded to in terms of write down what you do, how it speaks to your passion, managing the time, and then finding the alignment?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't found the method to it, but for me, when I zoom in and focus onto a project and I do the work, I just happen to attract people that will help me get to the next. And another thing, because my foundation is still very young, it's about 2 years, I've been running it from my pocket. I've been running it from my pocket, and then I will go say to someone, okay, I've raised this much to do project A, B, and C, and then I go and seek out help. And for some reason, when you start, people like that. It's like honey and bees. They're like, oh, here it is. And they just come to you. So in all honesty, I don't know what other people are doing, but for me, it's putting in the work and being passionate about something, and then, you know, asking, Nikki, will you please help me? Google, will you please help me? Can you contribute here and there? And it seems to work out. So that's been my method.
Makes sense. Well, we're in the last 3 minutes of this particular broadcast. I'm already disappointed. I wish we had 3 more hours because there's so much more to unpack. Nikki, you will be publishing the book and sending out a link to some of the viewers. There is a question that has come through on Twitter. One particular individual who wants to know if you will be touching on public speaking skills, and confidence perhaps. This is because they come from a technical training background and are moving more into entrepreneurship and interacting with senior business stakeholders. So they're trying to adapt to that culture of working in isolation and now having to partner and communicate with others.
Yeah, look, that book doesn't deal with that particularly, but I do think that, like with anything, communication is a vital skill to develop. Even if you come from a technical background, at some point you're going to have to sell your ideas to get the backing, the buy-in, or the money to actually take your idea forward. So take any opportunity to enhance your communication skills. Go and join Toastmasters to learn how to speak. Once you know how to speak, you come to me at the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, and we help people who build businesses around speaking, coaching, facilitating. Yes. There's so many opportunities out there to improve your communication skills. Don't let that go. Make sure that you keep building on that, because it's part of expressing who you are.
Exactly.
And that's what we need to do, is be able to clearly express what drives us and our ideas and our passions.
Exactly. Don't let anyone else narrate your story for you, but you need to be able to express it yourself fully. In closing, I want us to walk away with a sense of motivation. And Nikki, I think you put it best when you said, Is it new people? Is it new skills? Is it a new environment? Whatever that new thing is for you. And I think for many of us, we tend to feel that fire burning underneath our seat, but we fail to be able to explicitly express what that ellipsis actually entails. Where do we start in redefining that moment for ourselves? The ... Your parting shot to our young professionals today.
Well, I'm going to use the same words I used at the end of my presentation, and that is that you have to be courageous and step out of your comfort zone, and you have to be curious about what might be beyond everything you know. Because I think right now we are sitting on the edge of the map of everything we know, every one of us, because we're at a defining moment in history. And we have to be really curious about what lies beyond in that ocean that we've never been in before. So be curious.
Be curious instead of fearful. You've made it very clear, Sihle, that it's not about following other people's comments and their feedback. It's about having your tribe support you and the discipline in order to execute. Your parting shot to our young professionals today as to how to redefine and take the moment to identify that ... that will continue their story.
You're not stuck. You're not stuck. You choose to be. Get out of your own way.
Yes.
Get out of your head. Think new thoughts. For as long as you can breathe, you can do anything, absolutely anything. Like Nikki said, like we're in the 4th industrial revolution. We need to recreate our thinking. We need to recreate the way we do things. Start now. Don't put it off to next week. You don't know what's happening next week. Now, start and think new thoughts. You're resilient. You can do anything. You can be anything. I mean, I went from being an actor to a business person. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
Don't let your past define you.
Yeah.
I think that is so important, is that we so often, and in COVID it would be so easy to say, well, because of COVID my life didn't work out. That would be sad.
Letting yourself
down. That would be sad.
Yeah.
When the world is actually your oyster, full of possibility and opportunity, that you really just need to reach out and be bold enough to step out.
Exactly. Be bold enough and step out. Even for myself, I recall wanting to be a bean counter as a chartered accountant one day. But look where we are, able to express our passions and interact with an amazing set of people through each and every one of our interactions and journeys. And hopefully these are words of encouragement for you. Lots that we've certainly touched on, from identifying your why, understanding what your passion is, building up that multimedia talent pool as well as portfolio of your work, and ensuring that you put in a little bit more work, because average just isn't good enough. And make sure that you network and tap into the right opportunities to solicit the necessary support that you have. But most importantly, be courageous. Let your courage be greater than your fear, as we've heard from Nikki Bush today. And with that, we also want to encourage you to continue interacting with Nedbank, its counterparts, and even yourselves as young professionals who can interact and find new avenues for entrepreneurship development, developing new passion projects, and most importantly, ensuring that you're able to live your life to your fullest potential and capabilities in whatever variety of career paths you choose to explore. We've certainly had a blast being with each and every one of you today. We thank you for your questions that you've shared online, and of course ask that you continue to participate behind the scenes as well. Keep the messaging coming through on social media. Again, the hashtag to use is hashtag NedbankYoungPro and hashtag MyFutureGoals. We hope that we've left you informed, entertained, and most importantly, inspired. With that, on behalf of the Nedbank team, we wish you a wonderful day. Keep safe and stay healthy.